I never thought I'd come home to find her waiting inside. The caretaker's words echoed in my head as I stood frozen in the doorway. The wife is already inside, he said, his voice trembling. What do you mean, the wife? I asked, not sure if I was hearing him correctly. He only nodded toward the house, his expression unreadable. She's in there. A chill ran down my spine. I hadn't been to the beach house in over 6 months. No one was supposed to be there. The house had always been my escape from the chaos of work, my refuge from the world. And now, standing in the doorway, everything felt wrong. I stepped inside, my footsteps heavy on the wooden floor, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The air was thick, stale, as though it hadn't been disturbed in days. But there was a sense of life in the house now, something that shouldn't have been there. I moved deeper into the living room, my eyes scanning the space. The furniture was the same, the familiar coastal decor that always put me at ease, but today it felt foreign, out of place. I could feel her presence before I saw her. A low murmur of sound, just enough to make my heart race. I paused in the hallway, trying to make sense of what was happening. Who was the wife? I didn't have a wife. At least, not anymore. I hadn't been married in years. The only person who knew the key code to this place was Joe, the caretaker. He'd been looking after the house for as long as I could remember. So why would he let someone inside without asking? Why had he referred to her as the wife? It made no sense. My fingers brushed against the back of the chair as I continued down the hall, the sound of my breathing louder than it should have been. I felt like I was walking in someone else's life, a life I didn't recognize. Finally, I reached the door. I stood there for a moment, gathering my thoughts, trying to make sense of the situation. The doorknob felt cold under my hand as I twisted it slowly, pushing the door open just a crack. The room inside was dimly lit, the curtains drawn shut as though whoever was inside didn't want to be seen. And then I saw her. She was sitting on the couch, her back to me, looking out the window. She didn't turn around when I entered. The silence in the room was almost suffocating. Who are you? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The woman didn't respond at first. She sat there, unmoving, as though she hadn't heard me. But then, slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. There was something about her, something familiar, but also completely alien. She smiled faintly, but it wasn't a smile that reassured me. It was a smile that made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. I've been waiting for you, she said softly, her voice like the sound of distant waves crashing on the shore. I knew you'd come back eventually. I stood there, frozen in the doorway, my heart racing as the woman's eyes locked with mine. The silence between us stretched on, thick and heavy. She wasn't moving. I wasn't moving. I wasn't sure what to say. Who was she? Why was she here? And how did she know my name? My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything, but I couldn't. Everything about this moment felt wrong, like a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. Who are you? I asked again, my voice trembling this time. The woman didn't immediately respond, and I wondered for a split second if she was even real. Was she a figment of my imagination? Was I going insane? But then she spoke. You don't recognize me, do you? Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but there was something unsettling about it. No, I don't, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know who you are. She smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was empty, hollow. Maybe you will soon, she said cryptically. The words hung in the air between us, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I didn't know what she meant, but I knew I didn't want to find out. I took a step back, but she suddenly spoke again. You left me, Michael. My name. She knew my name. My breath caught in my throat. How did she know my name? The last time I checked, I didn't recognize her face. I don't know you, I said, my voice stronger now, though doubt gnawed at me. I think you're mistaken. She shook her head slowly, as though I were the one who didn't understand. No, Michael. I'm not mistaken. You're the one who's forgotten. A sudden wave of dizziness washed over me, and I had to grab onto the doorframe to steady myself. The room seemed to tilt, and for a moment, I wasn't sure if I was standing in the living room of my beach house, or if I was somewhere else entirely. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The woman stood up then, slowly, deliberately, her gaze never leaving mine. She moved closer, and I felt a sudden urge to run. But my feet wouldn't move. I don't want to hurt you, Michael, she said softly, her tone almost gentle, but there was an edge to her words. But you have to remember. You have to remember what you did. Her words were like a knife cutting through my thoughts. I couldn't breathe. What was she talking about? What did she mean, what I did? I didn't remember anything. My head was spinning, and the weight of her words was crushing me. She continued. You came here once before, didn't you? You left me here, all alone. I waited for you, Michael, but you never came back. She took another step toward me, and I felt the air grow colder. Why are you here? I demanded, my voice finally steady, though fear still clung to my every word. What do you want from me? She stopped right in front of me now, close enough that I could feel her breath, cool and steady. I want you to remember, she said simply. I want you to remember who I am. I want you to remember what you did. Her eyes pierced through me, and I could see something in them. Something familiar, but buried so deep I couldn't quite reach it. And then it hit me. A flash of memory. A distant feeling. A face, but not hers, someone else's. I closed my eyes, trying to grasp onto the fleeting image, but it was gone as quickly as it had come. I opened my eyes again, only to find her standing there, waiting. Do you remember now? She asked softly, her voice a whisper in the stillness of the room. I could feel my pulse racing in my ears as I stared at her. Every second felt like an eternity, each word she spoke adding more weight to the growing tension in the room. Do you remember now? She asked again, her voice soft but laced with something I couldn't quite place. I shook my head, trying to push the fog away. I couldn't understand what was happening. What did she want from me? Her eyes, dark and knowing, bore into mine as if she could see straight through me. There was something in her gaze, something unsettling, like she had been waiting for this moment for far longer than I had realized. My breath caught in my throat. A name flickered in my mind. Just a flash, a whisper, but it was there. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Who are you? I asked, trying to steady my voice. Please, tell me what's going on. She took a slow step forward, the sound of her movement too loud in the silence that hung between us. You really don't remember, do you? Her voice was soft, almost sorrowful. It was like she was talking to someone she knew, someone she had hoped would remember her. I don't remember anything. I don't know who you are, I repeated, though I was starting to feel the familiar tug of something buried deep inside. A memory I couldn't quite reach. She stood still for a moment, watching me, as if weighing whether or not to give me the answers I was desperately searching for. Then, finally, she spoke again, her words slow and deliberate. My name is Clara. I was your wife. And you left me here, Michael. You left me to rot in this house, waiting for you to come back. Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I staggered back, my hands bracing against the doorframe for support. Wife? I had been married. I couldn't remember any of it. How could I have forgotten? My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The room seemed to close in, and I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Clara stepped closer, but I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, trapped in this nightmare. You said you would come back, Michael. You promised. She continued, her voice now barely above a whisper. But you never did. You disappeared, and I was left here, alone. And now, you're here, but it's too late. You can't fix what's broken. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. What could I say? How could I explain the years of emptiness, the hole in my memory? I didn't even know where to begin. Clara's eyes softened for a moment, as if she saw the confusion in my face, but then her expression hardened again, like a mask slipping back into place. You don't understand, Michael, she said, her voice shaking slightly now. You don't know what it's like to be forgotten. My mind was racing, trying to piece together the fragments of my past that were slipping through my fingers like sand. My hands trembled as I reached up to rub my temples, trying to push back the headache that was quickly growing worse. I don't remember anything, I said, my voice strained. I don't remember you, Clara. I don't know why I left. I don't know why I came back. Clara studied me for a long time, her gaze intense, searching for something in my eyes. She seemed to be waiting for me to remember, to have some kind of revelation. But nothing came. All I felt was emptiness. The room felt colder, the air thicker. It was as though the walls themselves were closing in, suffocating me. I could feel my breath quickening, and my thoughts were jumbled. I needed to get out. I needed to leave this place, but my legs wouldn't move. You can't leave, Michael, Clara whispered, stepping closer again, her voice low and haunting. Not until you remember. I wanted to scream, to run out of the house, but all I could do was stand there, frozen. She had me trapped, both in the house and in my own mind. The door behind me seemed miles away, unreachable. And yet, somehow, I knew that if I didn't find the answers soon, I might never leave this place at all. I felt trapped, caught between the past and the present. The room seemed to close in on me, the walls pressing tighter with every passing second. Clara stood before me, her presence both comforting and terrifying. I could feel my mind spiraling, unable to grasp the fragments of memories that teased me from the edges of my thoughts. "You can't leave, Michael." Clara's voice was soft but firm. "You don't understand. You can't just walk away from what you've done." I shook my head, trying to clear the fog in my mind. "I don't even know what I've done," I yelled, my voice rising with frustration. "How can I fix something I don't even remember?" Clara didn't flinch. She just stood there, watching me with those dark eyes that seemed to see right through me. "You can't fix it because you don't want to. You've been running from this for so long. But now you're here. Now you have to face it." Her words cut through me like a blade. I staggered backward, the weight of her accusation crashing into me. I didn't understand. What was she talking about? Why was she doing this to me? "Face what, Clara? Face what I've forgotten?" I asked, my voice trembling. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run far away from this house, from her, but my legs wouldn't move. The air was thick with something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something more suffocating. Clara moved toward me slowly, each step deliberate, each movement measured. She was calm, controlled, like she had all the time in the world. "Yes, face what you've forgotten," she repeated, her voice almost a whisper now. "You can't outrun the truth, Michael. Not this time." I felt a sudden rush of heat, like my entire body was on fire. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, the tension tightening around my throat. "I don't remember," I said again, my voice barely a breath. "I don't remember any of this. How can I face something when I don't even know what it is?" Clara's gaze softened for a moment, but only for a moment. Her eyes were still full of that intense, unshakable focus. "Because the truth is inside you," she said, her voice almost soothing, like a lullaby. "You just have to remember. And when you do, you'll understand everything. You'll understand why I'm here." I wanted to scream, to lash out, to push her away. But I couldn't. Something in her words held me in place, rooted to the spot. "Please, Clara," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I want to understand. I want to remember." But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't enough. There was something missing, something crucial. Clara took another step closer, her breath cold against my skin. She reached out, her fingers grazing my arm. I flinched at the touch, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she looked up at me, her eyes searching mine. "I've waited for you," she said softly, almost as if she were trying to comfort me. "I've waited for you to come back and face what you left behind. But you've been running, Michael. You've been running for so long." I felt the weight of her words sink in, but it didn't help. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with them. I didn't know how to fix something I didn't understand. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper now, defeated. Clara paused, her gaze never leaving mine. "You need to face it, Michael. You need to look at the past, and you need to find the truth. Only then will you be free." The air around me seemed to grow heavier, the house feeling more and more suffocating. I could feel my chest tightening, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I didn't know what was real anymore. All I wanted was to escape, but Clara's words held me in place. I couldn't leave. Not yet. Not until I remembered. And the thought of that terrified me more than anything. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as Clara's words echoed in my mind. "You need to face it, Michael. You need to look at the past, and you need to find the truth." The air was thick with tension, each word she spoke pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake off. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the room felt smaller now, the walls closing in with every passing second. The house, once a place of calm and solitude, now felt like a cage, trapping me in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I needed to remember, but every time I tried to grasp at those fleeting memories, they slipped further away, just out of reach. Clara watched me with that same piercing gaze, her eyes never leaving mine. "I know this is hard," she said, her voice softer now. "But you have to remember. You can't keep running from this." I shook my head, the frustration building inside me. "I don't know how to remember," I said, my voice cracking. Everything is a blur. I can't even remember the last few years of my life. How am I supposed to face something when I don't even know what it is? Clara's expression softened, but her gaze remained intense. The truth is inside you, Michael. You just have to open your eyes and see it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her and demand that she tell me everything, that she fix this mess I was in. But there was something about her presence that kept me grounded, kept me from completely losing control. She wasn't threatening me. She wasn't even angry. She was calm, controlled. It only made things worse. Please, Clara, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Please tell me what happened. What am I supposed to face? Clara took a step closer, her movements slow and deliberate. You left me here, Michael. You promised you'd come back, but you never did. Her voice trembled slightly, the pain in her words clear. I waited for you. I waited every day, hoping you'd return. But you never came back. A sharp pain shot through my chest at her words. I had left her. I had promised to come back. But why couldn't I remember any of it? Why was everything so foggy, so distant? I don't remember leaving you, I said, the words heavy with guilt. I don't remember any of this. Why did I leave you, Clara? Why did I forget? Clara didn't answer immediately. She just stood there, her gaze softening as she looked at me. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the years of pain and longing she had carried all alone. Because you wanted to forget, she said finally. You wanted to run away from everything. From me. From the life we had. I could feel the weight of her words sinking in. I had wanted to forget. Was that true? Why? What had happened? The questions swirled in my mind, but every time I tried to latch onto an answer, it was like grabbing at smoke. I don't remember why I left, I said, my voice hoarse. I don't understand any of this. How do I make it right? Clara looked at me for a long time, as if searching for something in my eyes. Then, slowly, she spoke again. You can't make it right, Michael. Not completely, but you can start by remembering. I stared at her, the hopelessness creeping in. How could I remember something I had buried so deep? How could I face a past I couldn't even recall? The answers felt so far away, so unreachable. Clara's presence seemed to fill the room, overwhelming me. She was both my anchor and my prison. The past, whatever it was still out there, lurking, waiting for me to confront it. And as much as I wanted to run, to escape it all, I knew that I couldn't. Not until I faced the truth. But what was the truth? And how much longer could I stay here, trapped in this endless cycle of memories I couldn't reach? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the words Clara had spoken were still echoing in my head, louder than the sound of my own heartbeat. You can't make it right, Michael. Not completely, but you can start by remembering. The weight of her gaze pressed down on me, and for a moment, I wondered if I could even bear it. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the house, but my body was frozen, unable to move. My mind was too heavy, too full of unanswered questions. Clara was right in front of me, and yet the distance between us felt as vast as an ocean. How could I remember something that seemed so far out of reach? How could I fix something I didn't even know was broken? The silence stretched between us, and I could feel it in my chest, a heaviness that made it harder to breathe. Clara didn't speak again, but I could see the sadness in her eyes, the same sadness that had been there from the moment I stepped through the door. It was the kind of sadness that lingered, a quiet ache that never seemed to fade. I couldn't escape it, no matter how hard I tried. What am I supposed to remember? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My words hung in the air like a plea. What am I supposed to do with all of this? Clara took a step closer, her movements slow, deliberate, as if she were giving me the space to process, to let the truth sink in. You have to face the choices you made, Michael. The ones you tried to forget. Her words were like a slap to my face, and for a moment, I felt the sting deep inside. Choices I made. What was she talking about? My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, but every time I reached for a memory, it slipped further away, like sand through my fingers. I don't even know what choices I made, I said, frustration creeping into my voice. How am I supposed to face something that doesn't even feel real? Clara didn't answer right away. She simply looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and something else, something almost like pity. She knew something I didn't, something I needed to understand. I could feel my heart pounding faster now, the pulse in my ears almost drowning out the sound of her voice when she finally spoke. You chose to leave me, Michael, she said quietly. almost too softly. You chose to walk away from everything we built. And now, I'm still here, waiting for you to come back, to remember me. The words hit me like a wave, crashing over me, drowning me in a sea of confusion and guilt. Leave her. I had walked away from her. I couldn't remember any of it. I couldn't even remember us. I opened my mouth to say something, to explain, but no words came out. I felt a lump in my throat, choking back the words I couldn't find. Clara's gaze never wavered. She watched me closely, waiting for me to process what she had said, but nothing made sense. I didn't want to forget you. I whispered, my voice breaking. I don't remember leaving. Clara stepped closer again, this time reaching out as if to touch me, but stopping just short. I know, Michael. But you did. And now you have to remember. It's the only way forward. I could feel her presence closing in on me, filling the room, but it wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. The walls of the house seemed to close in, and I could almost hear the sound of my own breath, quick and shallow, as panic began to rise in my chest. What was I supposed to do with this? What? Was I supposed to remember? I didn't know how much longer I could stand here, trapped in this moment. My mind was a blank slate, and I didn't know if I could face the truth. Not yet. I wasn't ready. I could feel the pressure building, every second heavier than the last. The room seemed to close in around me, and Clara's presence, once something I thought I needed, now felt like a suffocating weight. My chest tightened with each breath, and the questions inside me, those unanswered, elusive questions, only seemed to multiply. I couldn't remember what happened. I couldn't remember why I had left her, why I had left everything behind. I don't remember any of it, Clara, I said again, my voice barely a whisper. I don't remember walking away from you. I don't remember us. The words tasted bitter on my tongue, but they were the only truth I knew. The past was a void, a black hole that swallowed everything. It felt like a lie. It felt like I was losing myself, bit by bit. Clara stood still, watching me, her expression unreadable. For a moment, she seemed distant, her gaze distant and cold. But then her eyes softened, and the distance between us seemed to shrink. I know you don't remember, Michael, she said quietly, her voice full of sorrow. But you will. You just have to open your eyes. It's inside you. It always has been. My hands shook as I reached up, rubbing my temples, trying to push away the headache that was beginning to pulse behind my eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. The weight of the past, of everything Clara was saying, was too much. I can't remember what's inside me. I muttered, my voice thick with frustration. It's gone, Clara. All of it. I don't know how to find it. She took a step closer, and I flinched instinctively. But she didn't stop. Instead, she reached out, gently placing a hand on my arm. Her touch was cold, but it wasn't the kind of cold that sent chills down my spine. It was the kind of cold that felt like loss, like something had already been taken from me. You haven't lost everything, Michael, she said softly. You haven't lost me. Not yet. The words hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I felt something deep inside, a flicker of recognition, but it was fleeting, like trying to remember a dream you've already forgotten. My heart beat faster, and I felt that familiar sense of panic rising again. How do I fix this? I asked desperately. How do I make it right? Clara's eyes searched mine, like she was looking for something, some sign that I was ready to understand. You can't fix it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Not in the way you think. There's no perfect solution, Michael. You can't undo the past. You can only move forward. I shook my head, the idea of moving forward without answers, without clarity, terrifying me. How can I move forward when I don't even know what happened? I demanded. Clara's hand dropped from my arm, and she stepped back, giving me some space. Her expression shifted again, a mixture of sadness and resolve. You have to trust yourself, she said softly. You have to trust that you'll find your way, even if it feels impossible. You'll remember when you're ready. But you have to start somewhere. Her words were like a lifeline, but they didn't feel like enough. The fog in my mind was thick, and I didn't know where to begin. How could I trust myself when everything felt like a lie? How could I trust anything when I couldn't even remember what was real? Clara looked at me one last time, and for a brief moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes, something that almost looked like hope. I'll be here, Michael, she said quietly. I'll always be here. But you have to find your way back to me. The silence stretched between us, and I didn't know what to say. I couldn't promise her anything. I didn't even know where to start. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep running. The truth was somewhere inside me, and no matter how long it took, I was going to find it. But the question was I ready to face it? I stepped back, the weight of Clara's words still hanging heavily in the air. The silence between us was suffocating, and I felt an overwhelming need to escape. But escape wasn't possible, not anymore. Not until I understood the truth. Not until I remembered. I can't keep running from this, can I? I said, my voice barely audible. Clara didn't answer right away, but I could see the faintest nod of her head, as if she knew what I was feeling. She had been waiting for me to come to this realization, and now that I had, I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. I didn't know if I was strong enough. She stepped forward again, the soft creak of the floorboards under her feet barely breaking the silence. No, you can't, she said softly. You have to face what you've been avoiding. It's the only way to move forward. The words sent a chill down my spine, and I felt my stomach tighten. What had I been avoiding? What was it that I couldn't face? The questions swirled in my mind, but the answers remained just out of reach. Clara seemed to read my mind. You're afraid of what you'll find, she said, her voice quiet, almost gentle. But you can't keep living in fear. Not when the truth is waiting for you. Fear. It was the one thing that had been holding me back all this time. Fear of what I might discover. Fear of what I might have done. Fear of facing the person I had become. But Clara was right. I couldn't keep hiding. I had to face whatever it was that had been buried deep inside me. I had to confront the truth. I turned toward the window, the faint light of the setting sun filtering through the curtains. It was a peaceful sight, but the peace felt fleeting, fragile, just like the memories I was trying so desperately to reach. The house felt colder now, like the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. How do I start? I asked, my voice shaky. How do I even begin to remember? Clara didn't answer immediately. She stood there, watching me with that same intense gaze, as if she were waiting for me to take the first step. You start by accepting that you don't have all the answers, she said finally. You start by trusting yourself, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on her words, trying to block out the whirlwind of thoughts in my mind. I didn't have all the answers. I knew that. But what was I supposed to do when the pieces of my past were scattered, broken, and incomplete? How could I trust myself when everything felt like a lie? Clara moved closer, her voice soft and steady as she spoke again. The truth won't come all at once, Michael, she said. It won't be easy, but it's there, waiting for you. You just have to open your eyes and let it in. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat growing with every passing second. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it, but deep down, I knew I didn't have a choice. The truth was waiting for me, whether I was ready or not. And if I didn't face it now, I would never be free. I turned back to Clara, my heart pounding in my chest. I'll try, I said, my voice hoarse. I'll try to remember, but I don't know if I can. She smiled, a small, sad smile, but it was a smile that held more warmth than I had expected. You will, she said softly. You will remember, when the time is right. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that the truth would come to me, that I would be able to put the pieces together and find the answers. But fear still gripped me, and the uncertainty weighed on my shoulders. The road ahead was unclear, and I didn't know how long it would take to find my way. But one thing was certain, I couldn't keep running. Not anymore. The truth was waiting, and it was time to face it. Slowly, I turned away from Clara and walked toward the door. My steps were heavy, but there was a sense of resolve building inside me. The past was waiting to be uncovered, and no matter how hard it was, I was going to find it. I wasn't sure where this journey would take me, but I knew that I had to begin. The door creaked open, and the first step into the unknown felt like the hardest one I would ever take. I stepped back, the weight of Clara's words still hanging heavily in the air. The silence between us was suffocating, and I felt an overwhelming need to escape. But escape wasn't possible, not anymore. Not until I understood the truth. Not until I remembered. I can't keep running from this, can I? I said, my voice barely audible. Clara didn't answer right away, but I could see the faintest nod of her head, as if she knew what I was feeling. She had been waiting for me to come to this realization, and now that I had, I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. I didn't know if I was strong enough. She stepped forward again, the soft creak of the floorboards under her feet barely breaking the silence. No, You can't, she said softly. You have to face what you've been avoiding. It's the only way to move forward. The words sent a chill down my spine, and I felt my stomach tighten. What had I been avoiding? What was it that I couldn't face? The questions swirled in my mind, but the answers remained just out of reach. Clara seemed to read my mind. You're afraid of what you'll find, she said, her voice quiet, almost gentle. But you can't keep living in fear. Not when the truth is waiting for you. Fear. It was the one thing that had been holding me back all this time. Fear of what I might discover. Fear of what I might have done. Fear of facing the person I had become. But Clara was right. I couldn't keep hiding. I had to face whatever it was that had been buried deep inside me. I had to confront the truth. I turned toward the window, the faint light of the setting sun filtering through the curtains. It was a peaceful sight, but the peace felt fleeting, fragile, just like the memories I was trying so desperately to reach. The house felt colder now, like the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. How do I start? I asked, my voice shaky. How do I even begin to remember? Clara didn't answer immediately. She stood there, watching me with that same intense gaze, as if she were waiting for me to take the first step. You start by accepting that you don't have all the answers, she said finally. You start by trusting yourself, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on her words, trying to block out the whirlwind of thoughts in my mind. I didn't have all the answers. I knew that. But what was I supposed to do when the pieces of my past were scattered, broken, and incomplete? How could I trust myself when everything felt like a lie? Clara moved closer, her voice soft and steady as she spoke again. The truth won't come all at once, Michael, she said. It won't be easy, but it's there, waiting for you. You just have to open your eyes and let it in. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat growing with every passing second. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it, but deep down, I knew I didn't have a choice. The truth was waiting for me, whether I was ready or not. And if I didn't face it now, I would never be free. I turned back to Clara, my heart pounding in my chest. I'll try, I said, my voice hoarse. I'll try to remember, but I don't know if I can. She smiled, a small, sad smile, but it was a smile that held more warmth than I had expected. You will, she said softly. You will remember, when the time is right. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that the truth would come to me, that I would be able to put the pieces together and find the answers. But fear still gripped me, and the uncertainty weighed on my shoulders. The road ahead was unclear, and I didn't know how long it would take to find my way. But one thing was certain, I couldn't keep running. Not anymore. The truth was waiting, and it was time to face it. Slowly, I turned away from Clara and walked toward the door. My door at an unhurried pace, and opened it. Daniel stood on the porch, shoulders slightly rounded, his confidence tempered. Olivia stood beside him, composed but less certain than before. Margaret stepped aside to let them in. No one embraced. No one argued. They moved into the living room and sat across from her, the distance between the chairs deliberate but not hostile. For a moment, no one spoke. The ticking of the hallway clock filled the silence. Daniel finally cleared his throat. We handled this badly, he said. The admission sounded unfamiliar on his tongue. Margaret did not nod in triumph. She simply listened. Olivia folded her hands together. We thought we were being practical, she added. We did not realize how it would look. Margaret rested her hands lightly on her knees. It looked like urgency, she replied. And urgency, without discussion, feels like removal. Daniel exhaled slowly. We were thinking about expansion, he admitted. A second property. Investment leverage. It would have been easier if assets were consolidated. Margaret held his gaze. Easier for whom? She asked gently. The question lingered. Olivia glanced down. Daniel did not answer immediately. The truth did not need embellishment. Margaret leaned back slightly. I am not opposed to growth, she said. But growth that depends on my silence is not partnership. It is pressure. The words were calm, not cutting. Daniel's posture shifted again, less defensive now. We did not see it that way, he said quietly. Margaret rose and walked toward the hallway, returning with the leather folder in her hands. She did not open it. She placed it on the table between them. This is not a threat, she said. It is structure. The trust remains. The boundaries remain. What changes is transparency. Olivia looked up. What does that mean? Margaret answered without hesitation, and sat once more in her chair. The house felt balanced again, not because control had been asserted loudly, but because it had been clarified. She picked up her tea and looked toward the window where afternoon light filtered softly across the floor. 10 minutes at a dinner table had revealed more than months of polite conversation. They had believed they were building leverage. Instead, they had revealed intent. And Margaret, steady as ever, had not run. She had repositioned.